Welcome to the Ohio State Legal Services Association's Family Law Video Project. This video was made possible through the generous support of the Ohio Legal Assistance Foundation, and the content was created by Southeastern Ohio Legal Services and the Legal Aid Society of Columbus. The video you are about to watch will guide you through some of the forms that you will need to file in Ohio courts when you want a divorce or you need to respond to a divorce your husband or wife filed. The information we provide is not legal advice and does not create a lawyer-client relationship with you. We cannot guarantee any specific outcome in your case, and we are not responsible for any errors on your form. You should hire a lawyer if you can afford one, especially if your divorce case is complicated. This may mean that you and your spouse do not agree on custody of your children, you own real estate, you have a lot of property to divide, you or your spouse have retirement accounts, your spouse hired a lawyer, or if one spouse has a much higher income than the other spouse. If you need a lawyer or specific advice about your case, you have several options. If you are low income, you can contact your local legal aid program. If you need information about which legal aid covers your community, call the following number. Many communities also have pro bono clinics where low-income people can talk to a volunteer lawyer. Your local legal aid program will have a list of clinics near you. Finally, if you can afford a lawyer, you should reach out to your local bar association for a lawyer referral. The forms you will be completing can all be found online on the Ohio Supreme Court website here. The forms available online may be completed in Microsoft Word or PDF form on a computer. If you are not able to complete them on a computer, you can handwrite the forms. Be sure to print as clearly as possible and always use a pen. Some courts require you to use a pen with blue ink or black ink, so you may want to check with your local clerk of courts on ink requirements before you fill out the forms. Note that just because the Supreme Court is providing these forms, you will be filing them in your local courts, not the Supreme Court. This is not the only form you will need to complete. At the end of this video, you will see a list of forms that you will need to fill out if you are filing a divorce or if you are responding to a divorce complaint. If you complete and file the Supreme Court forms listed, that should be enough to get your divorce case started or respond to a divorce complaint. However, your local court may require you to also complete additional forms. Keep in mind that you might be watching each video more than once, as sometimes you will need to gather additional information that you don't have on hand during the first attempt.
This video will cover how to complete an affidavit of income and expenses. In a divorce case, both the plaintiff and defendant should fill out this affidavit. You will need a calculator and financial information like pay stubs and tax records to complete this form. At the top of the first page, you should see the phrase, "In the Court of Common Pleas." On the next line, write in the name of the county where your divorce complaint is being filed. Next, you should fill in the names of the plaintiff and the defendant. Directly below the court name and county, and to the right, write the case number on the line that starts case number. Use the case number on the complaint. If there is a judge's name or a magistrate's name listed on the complaint, write those names on the lines under the case number. If the judge and magistrate's names are not listed on the complaint, it is okay to leave these lines blank. Write your name next to affidavit of. Next, write your date of marriage and the date you separated from your spouse. Check the appropriate boxes for whether you or your spouse currently have jobs. If you or your spouse is employed, fill in the information about the employer and how often you or your spouse is paid. Your answers to the questions in this affidavit are important because they will help the court make orders about child support, spousal support, and other financial issues. It's important to try to answer the questions about your spouse's income, even if you don't have exact numbers. You can estimate the answers for questions about your spouse's income to the best of your knowledge and write EST after the number. In Section A for yearly income, write your name and your spouse's name again. Down the center column, fill in the years. For example, if you're completing this form in 2018, then you would write 2015 for 3 years ago, 2016 for 2 years ago, and 2017 for last year. Write your base yearly income from all sources over the last 3 years. Do the same for your spouse. It may be helpful to refer to tax returns if you or your spouse was working. Next, add up all the overtime, commissions, and bonuses you or your spouse earned over the last 3 years and complete the section. If you or your spouse did not have income in a certain year over the last 3 years, make sure you put 0 on the line and don't just leave it blank. Next, in Section B on current income, again, write your name and your spouse's name. Fill in information about your income for the current year. The first question about base yearly income should be what you anticipate you will make this year in employment income. Next, you should fill in the amount you anticipate you will get this year in overtime, commissions, and bonuses. The question suggests you can average the amount you received over the last 3 years. There are additional questions about how much income you anticipate you will receive from other sources like unemployment, disability, retirement, and spousal support. If the answer to any of these questions is that you don't anticipate any income from that source this year, make sure you write 0 on the line and don't just leave it blank. Complete all of these questions to the best of your knowledge for your spouse. Again, you can write EST after the number if you are estimating. Total up the amounts on all the lines above and write the sum on the line for total yearly income. Towards the bottom of the page, write down the amount you anticipate you will receive this year in SSI or other public assistance, such as welfare or OWF. Do the same for your spouse. Finally, write down how much you or your spouse is receiving in court-ordered child support for children that are not part of the marriage. In Section 2, complete the information about minor or dependent children from the marriage and write down the number of other people living in your household. In Section 3, Part A, you will need to fill in information about your monthly living expenses for the household you are currently living in. It is helpful to have copies of bills and statements to complete this section. If there are bills that you do not pay monthly, you should divide your payment by the number of months you are paying the bill to get your monthly expense. For example, if you pay your water bill quarterly or every 3 months, divide the amount you pay by 3 to get your monthly expense. If there are monthly expenses that change each month, like your electric bill, try to figure out what an average amount is that you pay each month. You can do this by adding together what you paid for electric over the last year and dividing it by 12. The amount for telephone listed in this section is for a landline phone. There is a place in another section for your cell phone bill payment. In Section 3, Part B, fill in information about your other monthly expenses. For the question about groceries, write in how much you actually spend each month that does not include food stamps or other food assistance. Be realistic about what you actually spend for these categories. You will not be rewarded by the court for filling in 0 on all these lines if that's not really true. For instance, even if you don't buy clothes for yourself every month, over the course of the year, you likely spend money on clothing for yourself, including shoes and coats. Total up how much you spend on clothing and shoes for yourself in a year and divide that by 12 for the monthly expense. In Section 3, Part C, fill in information about monthly expenses you have for your children. Again, for expenses like school supplies that you usually pay once a year, divide the total amount you pay for the entire year by 12 to get the monthly expense. In Part D, fill in information about your monthly insurance premiums. Remember, if you don't have the monthly expense listed, you should put 0 on the line. In Part E, fill in information about monthly expenses you pay related to education. This also includes monthly payments you make on student loans. In Part F, fill in information about out-of-pocket medical expenses you pay for things that aren't covered by your insurance. If these expenses don't come up monthly, write down the monthly average. In Part G, write down other miscellaneous expenses. If you pay child support for children that aren't a part of the marriage, that amount will go in this section. Again, be realistic. If you have a pet, you likely have some monthly expenses for at least food for your pet. In Part H, write down any monthly installment payments you make on things like credit cards or bank loans. Do not repeat monthly payments that you listed somewhere else on this form. At the bottom of page 6, you will need to total all the monthly expenses that you listed in parts A through H. This is when a calculator will come in handy. If your total monthly expenses are more than your total monthly income, that's okay. Your goal is not to show a balanced budget, but to give the court accurate information about your actual monthly expenses. At the end of the form, there is a section with the title Oath. You must sign this document in front of a notary. Print your name on the first line. While a notary is watching you sign the line above your signature. The lines in this section beginning with "sworn before" are for the notary to complete. You can find a notary at most banks. If it's your bank, they will usually notarize documents for free. The clerk of courts will not notarize your documents for you.
You have reached the end of this video. Remember that if you still have questions about how to fill out the forms for your specific situation, you should talk to a lawyer. If you need a lawyer or specific advice about your case, you have several options. If you are low income, you can contact your local legal aid program. If you need information about which legal aid covers your community, call the following number. Many communities also have pro bono clinics where low-income people can talk to a volunteer lawyer. Your local legal aid program will have a list of clinics near you. Finally, if you can afford a lawyer, you should reach out to your local bar association for a lawyer referral. Remember that this is not the only form you will need. Here is a list of the forms you will need if you are filing a divorce or if you are defending or responding to a divorce. If you complete your forms and wait a period of time before you file the forms, it is your responsibility to check the Supreme Court website to make sure that there were no changes to the forms since you first completed them.